With Nick Fields from the Financial Times.
Thank you. Just on the AUKUS, obviously the subject of today, has the US review disrupted or threatened at all any of the planning or design SSN AUKUS? Have any discussions happened with the US recently about how to help that manufacturing? Modern it's a concern about that.
Well, perhaps I might start on that. A new government undertaking a review is the most natural thing in the world, and we've welcomed the review which is being undertaken by the Trump administration. We spoke today about how both countries can contribute to the review. When we came to government back in 2022, we undertook the Defence Strategic Review, which looked at all of our strategic landscape and our defence settings, but very much looked at AUKUS at that time. And of course, when the UK government came to power, they in turn undertook a review through Stephen Lovegrove of AUKUS. So, this is a very, very natural step. But in respect of both the reviews that have happened in the past, and it would be true in respect of this review, work on AUKUS continues apace. And so the answer to the question is we continue to work very closely together, but very closely with the United States in progressing the optimal pathway to Australia acquiring a nuclear-powered submarine capability, but to see the fruition of the AUKUS arrangement in all three countries. And in respect of the production and maintenance schedule in the United States, we continue Australia to make our financial contributions to that industrial base, and we've made two contributions, each of $500 million US this year, so a total of $1 billion US through the course of this year. There are something in the order of 120 Australian tradesmen and women who are in Pearl Harbor right now working on the sustainment of US Virginia-class submarines for the US Navy. So all of that work continues, and we are really confident that the production rates will be raised in America, which is very much part of the ambition of AUKUS, and the sustainment rates will be lifted in the US, and all of that continues at a pace. And in respect of the review, as I said, we very much welcome it, and we'll make our contributions to it.
From the UK's part, as Richard has said, this is natural for a new government to review the programme. We welcome it because it's an opportunity for the new administration to renew America's commitment to the deep AUKUS partnership that our three nations have. We welcome it because it will underline the benefits that it brings not just to the three nations but to the US in particular, and their concerns about China, their concerns about the Indo-Pacific. It means in the short term, next year and the year after, more attack subs in the Indo-Pacific. In the medium term, when the maintenance facilities in Perth can accommodate US subs, it means that they will be able to maintain, put more subs in the sea. And long term, as we build more attack subs, again, it means more subs, greater deterrence and greater regional security in the Indo-Pacific. It also underlines the fact that both Australia and the UK are increasing our investment, not just in defence, but in this advanced capability. We are doing so, and the AUKUS partnership is one that does not cost the US taxpayer anymore. Indeed, we are putting more in, Australia and the UK. And finally, it is a partnership that will bring hundreds of new jobs, thousands of new jobs to all three nations. Skilled work, high-paid work that will help drive the economies in all three nations. So we welcome the review. We'll make our contribution to the review. We see it as a natural part of a new government renewing its commitment in turn to this AUKUS partnership.
Anna Henderson, SPS.
Given what's occurring in Gaza, and given that it's now being discussed Well, look, let me start by saying that the situation, the deteriorating situation we've seen in Gaza over the last few weeks is indefensible. The sight of children reaching for aid and losing their lives has caused consternation over much of the world. And that is why I repeat my call today for a ceasefire that can see hostages released who've now been kept for so long away from their families and loved ones, and a ceasefire that would alleviate the suffering that we're seeing in Gaza. The belief in a two-state solution is steadfast in both of our countries. That is the only solution to the long-standing issues that we see in the region. And we have been committed in the UK for a long time in recognition, and that the Palestinian cause is a just cause. And we have always wanted to recognise as part of a process, and we recognise that the situation in the West Bank is extremely concerning, with more expansion in the last year that we've seen than we've seen in the decade previous, and a lot of settler violence as well. And that's why we announced a round of sanctions against those settlers, and sadly against ministers Smodrick and Ben-Gvir, engaged in rhetoric and language that we thought was unacceptable. We will continue to work with partners as we head towards both the conference next week and then further activity in UNGA in September, to get us towards a two-state solution. And we remain absolutely steadfast in that ambition. And Prime Minister Starmer will be speaking to our partners in France and in Germany. I'm hoping later on today, once again, to coordinate on our efforts in Europe, as we have been coordinating here with Australian allies.
I think, as the Prime Minister said today in his statement, the situation in Gaza is beyond the world's worst fears. And children are starving, civilians are dying, and you would have seen the statements, and most particularly the recent statement that we joined with the UK, that again called for an immediate ceasefire, for aid to flow unimpeded, and made clear that what is occurring in Gaza in relation to aid, the lack of aid, and children, and the deaths of civilians seeking to gain aid is indefensible. In relation to two states, I think you would have heard me say many times, I gave a speech in April last year where I said we no longer see recognition at the end of a peace process only. And we remain committed to working with other countries towards a two-state solution. And why is that? It's the point that David made. It is ultimately the only hope of peace and breaking the cycle of violence and assuring the security and aspirations and peace for both Israelis and Palestinians. I also talked then about a number of challenges, including no role for Hamas in a future Palestinian state. We know Hamas continues to hold hostages. We are also seeing signs, and I think President Macron has spoken about this, of the Palestinian Authority seeking to play its part as a partner of peace. So these are good steps. But what we need is a ceasefire, we need the hostages released, and we need aid to flow urgently.
Stephen Jedgetts of the ABC.
Thanks very much. Secretary Healy, earlier this year, your department warned about serious potential shortcomings in the Rolls-Royce program that would produce nuclear core. It will power both SSN Aukus and also the Dreadnought-class submarine well down the track. Given the seriousness of these problems, what assurances can you offer to the Australian public who is making a contribution towards this program for Aukus? And Defence Minister, can I ask what assurances you've sought over the last 3 or 4 months about this, and whether you are confident, knowledgeable of the timeframes we're talking here, about the progress of this particular program?
Thank you. Quite simply, we've stepped up our investment. We've stepped up the close work with Rolls-Royce and the other major partners on the design and build program. We've also stepped up the investment in the productive capacity at our submarine building works in Barrow. And we as a government have made a commitment that we'll put £6 billion of investment in this Parliament alone in making sure that we have the productive capacity, we have the technology and the designs to be able to deliver our commitments to the SSN AUKUS, and we will.
I think the way I'd start by answering this question is to say that we have seen this from the outset as a partnership. I mean, we're fundamentally doing this together, which is obviously why we are making the financial contribution that we are to the UK system. But we are very much collaborating in terms of what is happening, and we have been kept abreast at every moment from the UK in terms of the development of the Rolls-Royce facility. I've been to the facility myself. I've seen the plans of its expansion. I've actually seen items that have already been made, which will find their way onto the first of the submarines that will come off the production line at the Osborne Naval Shipyard in Adelaide in the early 2040s. So the short answer to your question is the state of the partnership could not be better. It will be underpinned by the treaty that we sign in Geelong tomorrow, and I'm very confident about the way in which the industrial base in the UK will be able to deliver to see Australia being able to build our submarines in Adelaide. Andrew Tillett from AFR. Look, I might start in answering that. There's obviously a lot of speculation in the question that you've just asked, Andrew. But the AUKUS optimal pathway that was agreed back in March of 2023 is underpinned by a treaty that all 3 of our countries signed in Washington, DC in August of last year. And we welcome the review which is being undertaken in the United States right now, but we are really confident about the progress of the AUKUS project and the progress in respect of all 3 countries. The treaty that we will be signing tomorrow is what, in a bilateral sense, underpins the trilateral treaty that we signed in August of last year. But as others have said, as John very eloquently said earlier, what this does is underpin 50 years of cooperation between our 2 countries in what will be the biggest industrial endeavour that our nation has ever seen, and will give rise to the biggest leap in military capability that our nation has had since, frankly, the establishment of the Navy back in 1913. It is a profoundly important treaty that we will sign tomorrow. It forms part of a trilateral agreement that we have, and we are really confident about the progress of all three countries in bringing that to fruition.
Yeah, look, it's a three-nation treaty. There are three-nation benefits in this. I outlined the benefits to the US earlier on. Both our nations, Australia and the UK, welcome the review because we see this as a chance for a new administration to renew their commitment to AUKUS, and that's what we expect. And any sort of hypotheticals that you suggest simply aren't part of the picture.
Bernard Lagan, I hope I'm saying that right, of The Times.
You've heard the Defence Secretary say, and I've said the same, that the Euro-Atlantic and the Indo-Pacific are indivisible. It's why I was just a couple of weeks ago with my colleague Penny Wong at the ASEAN conference. It's why we've got a commitment to CPTPP, and it's why the Carrier Strike Group are passing through the region at this time. It wouldn't be appropriate for me to comment on operations, but we do see concerning activity in the South China Sea. We believe in the rules-based order. We believe in the laws and rules of the sea. And for that reason, and because we also see partnerships, for example, the partnership between the DPRK and Russia in Ukraine, that remind us of the indivisibility of these two arenas. That's why I'm here with the Defence Sec. That's why we'll be back. And I might say that when this government came to power first, I think I was the first visitor to this part of the world. So for all of those reasons, we remain engaged, we remain vigilant, and pretty focused.
No.
No.
And the US have been an integral part of the planning of the whole carrier strike program. They were central to our ability to get the carrier group safely through the Red Sea. And we're proud that this is the first British aircraft carrier to be alongside Australia since 1997. And to add to David's point about the indivisibility of security in the Indo-Pacific and the Euro-Atlantic, we as a new government have published a strategic defence review. It underlines a NATO-first policy, but not a NATO-only policy. And so this carrier, Prince of Wales, will spend 4 months in the Indo-Pacific in the next 4 years. It will return to its core duties in the Euro-Atlantic as the second qualified aircraft carrier in the world for fifth generation capabilities. And it will gain that through the Talisman Sabre exercise, through exercises that will follow off Japan and off Korea, and then back in the Mediterranean. So this is in practice, a demonstration of how, by combining our forces, by combining our exercises, we strengthen our deterrence, we strengthen our security, and we do so both in the Indo-Pacific and in the Euro-Atlantic.
And finally, Andrew Probyn of Nine.
Well, let me say that as the UK Foreign Secretary, I made a quasi-judicial decision based on our own legal assessment back in September of last year. And I assessed that there was a clear risk of a breach of international humanitarian law. And on that basis, the UK government decided to suspend arms sales that could be used in Gaza. And we remain very concerned about the malnourishment, the starvation that we're seeing. We have just recently increased our funding to UK Med to support medical needs in Gaza. And when you ask about airdrops, we are discussing with partners in Jordan, particularly what more we can do to alleviate the pain and suffering that we're seeing in Gaza at this time. But I repeat that a ceasefire is the quickest and easiest way to achieve that, and a sustained ceasefire that lasts, not a pause. What we saw last time is that when there was a ceasefire, there was a rapid increase in the amount of trucks going in. So we know it can be done, and that is what we have to achieve, and that is why we disagreed with Israel about the new aid system that they put in place. We warned and cautioned that reducing the 400 sites down to 4 sites would cause chaos, and chaos also that we feared would be exploited by Hamas, and we have seen that as well in recent times. We continue to work with our partners in France and Saudi Arabia. We are in close touch about the two-state conference, and of course we will be present in New York next week. We're chairing the working group on the humanitarian side, particularly, and as I have said, the Palestinian cause is a just cause. We recognise that there are those who do not believe in 2 states. Well, if you believe in 1 state, then you have to answer the question about equality for all citizens before the law, or perhaps you believe in no state, and no state is unacceptable to both the United Kingdom and Australia and the global community.
I think the first point I'd make, Andrew, is I think we all are distressed by the ongoing violence, the deaths of so many innocent civilians, the images of children starving, the humanitarian catastrophe that is worsting before our eyes, and we all want it to stop. We know Australia is not a central player, so what do? We combine with others such as the UK in our calls and our statements. We provide humanitarian aid, about 110 million to date to the region. We work with Jordan and others to deliver the aid that we are able to. So we do all of those things, recognising that ultimately what is required is an immediate ceasefire, release of hostages, and aid to flow unimpeded. In relation to 2 states, I responded to your colleague previously. We are committed to making a 2-state solution a reality, and committed to working with other countries to making that happen. I've outlined the challenges associated with that, but ultimately we end up where David has outlined. Where is the prospect of peace for both peoples, for Israelis and Palestinians, unless the international community and the parties can find a way to two states.
Well, as always, thank you, Penny. And on behalf of Penny and I, thank you again, John and David, for today's AUKMIN. We are very much looking forward to sharing a meal tonight, and thank you all for being here today.